The lightning split the night sky like a jagged wound, followed by thunder that rattled the windows of the old farmhouse. 17-year-old Kai Morrow pressed his face against the glass, watching sheets of rain blur the world into abstract impressions. Something about this storm felt different, charged with an energy that made his skin prickle. Then came the sound that didn't belong, a deep, resonant crash from the woods behind their property, followed by an eerie blue-white glow that pulsed once, twice, then faded. "Mom," Kai called, but his mother had taken her sleeping pills hours ago. The storm had been predicted, but not this intensity, not this strange quality of light. Against his better judgment, or perhaps because of a restless 17-year-old's innate poor judgment, Kai grabbed his rain jacket and flashlight. The greenhouse. Whatever had crashed was near the old greenhouse his father had built years ago, now overgrown and forgotten. The rain soaked through his jacket within seconds. Kai pushed through wet branches, his flashlight beam dancing wildly as he climbed the familiar hill. The greenhouse stood like a glass skeleton among the trees, most of its panels long since shattered. That's when he saw her. Silver-purple skin gleamed wetly in his flashlight beam. She was human-shaped, but definitely not human. Too tall, too angular, with fingers that seemed too long. Blonde hair, plastered to her head by rain, framed a face with features that were almost familiar but subtly wrong. Her skin bore faint markings that pulsed with a soft internal light, like bioluminescent tattoos. She was conscious, barely, her lips moving in words that made no sense. Her clothing, if it was clothing, looked like it had been partially burned, revealing more of that strange silver-purple skin. In her hand, she clutched something that looked like melted crystal and twisted metal. Kai stood frozen. This had to be a dream, or maybe he'd been struck by lightning and was hallucinating. But when she opened her eyes, deep violet with flecks of gold, and reached toward him with a trembling hand, dream logic gave way to pure instinct. "Hey, it's okay," he heard himself saying, though she clearly couldn't understand. "I won't hurt you." Her pupils dilated. She tried to speak again, the words liquid and musical but utterly foreign. Then she attempted to stand, swayed, and Kai caught her before she could fall. The touch sent a shock through him, not painful but like static electricity mixed with warmth. She weighed less than he expected. Kai made a split-second decision that would change everything. Instead of calling the authorities, instead of waking his mother, instead of doing anything that would count as reasonable or responsible, he carried this impossible girl into the greenhouse. The broken glass crunched under his feet as he navigated to the back corner where his dad had once built a small potting station. A wooden bench and some old tarps would have to do. Kai set her down as gently as he could, noting how her breathing seemed too shallow, how her skin's glow was fading. "Water," he said, miming drinking. She stared blankly, so he held up one finger, the universal sign for wait, and sprinted back to the house. When he returned with a bottle of water, a first aid kit, and some of his mother's emergency chocolate, she was examining the melted device in her hand with an expression that looked unmistakably like grief. She looked up as he entered, and for the first time, Kai saw intelligence behind those alien eyes. She pointed at the device, then at herself, then made an explosive gesture with her hands. The meaning was clear. Something had destroyed whatever this was, and she was the result, or perhaps the target. Kai offered the water bottle. She examined it curiously before figuring out the cap. As she drank, some color returned to her skin, the bioluminescent markings brightening slightly. When she'd had enough, she pointed at herself. "Vera," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to vibrate in Kai's chest. "Kai," he replied, pointing to himself. She repeated his name, the K sound coming out softer, almost like a sigh. "Kai." Outside, the storm was weakening, but inside the dilapidated greenhouse, a bigger storm was just beginning. Kai had no idea what he'd just started, no concept of the two worlds that were about to collide, because a teenager chose curiosity over caution on a strange summer night. All he knew was that Vera needed help, and for some reason he couldn't explain, helping her felt like the most important thing he'd ever do. As dawn approached, Kai fashioned a makeshift shelter in the greenhouse using tarps and old gardening equipment. Vera had fallen into an exhausted sleep, her breathing evening out, though her skin still pulsed with that soft inner light. He sat watching her, wondering what force in the universe had sent this impossible creature crashing into his ordinary life. The sun was just beginning to peek through the trees when his phone buzzed. A text from his best friend Jake. Dude, did you see that meteor last night? My dad says the news is going crazy about some kind of energy burst. Military's supposedly investigating. Kai glanced at Vera, then at his phone, then back at Vera. Meteor. Right. He deleted Jake's text without responding and turned off his phone. Whatever this was, whatever she was, the world would find out eventually. But not today. Today, he would figure out how to help an alien girl heal in secret, and maybe, just maybe, learn why her appearance felt less like a coincidence and more like destiny. The sun rose higher, painting the interior of the greenhouse in patterns of gold and shadow. Vera stirred, those violet gold eyes finding his immediately. She smiled, a gesture that transcended language, and Kai felt something shift in his chest, like puzzle pieces clicking into place. He didn't know it yet, but his life would never be ordinary again. 3 weeks had passed since that stormy night, and Kai's life had become a careful balance of deception and discovery. Each morning before dawn, he'd sneak out to the greenhouse with food, water, and whatever supplies he thought Vera might need. His mother attributed his early rising to a sudden passion for photography, a cover story that worked better than expected. Vera's injuries had healed remarkably fast. The silver-purple skin that had seemed so alien now felt familiar, especially when the morning light made her bioluminescent markings glow softly. They'd developed their own language, a mixture of gestures, drawings in the dirt, and the handful of words each had learned in the other's tongue. Hungry? He'd ask each morning, and she'd respond with a melodic sound that meant yes, while tracing a symbol in the air that he'd learned meant gratitude. Today felt different. The air carried an electric charge that reminded him of the storm 3 weeks ago. Vera was sitting cross-legged on the tarp, examining the melted device with intense concentration. When she noticed him, her face lit up, an expression that never failed to make his heart skip. Kai, she said, then held up the device. Broken, but... She gestured to herself, then to the device, then made a swirling motion with her hands. He'd learned that this gesture meant connected or part of. The device was part of her somehow. Can you fix it? He asked, using the gesture they'd established for repair. She shook her head but then did something unexpected. She took his hand and placed it on the device. The moment their skin touched the twisted metal, Kai felt a surge of something. Images flashed through his mind. Vast cities of crystal and light, beings with silver-purple skin walking among towering spires, space filled with ships that moved like living things. He jerked his hand back, heart racing. What was that? Vera's eyes were wide with the same wonder he felt. She pointed to her head, then to his, then made the swirling gesture. Connected, she whispered in his language. Over the following days, these touch connections became more frequent. Vera would brush his arm while reaching for water, and he'd catch glimpses of her world. He'd steady her as she stood and feel the ache of her homesickness. The more they touched, the clearer the images became. One evening, as purple twilight painted the sky, Vera took his hand deliberately. This time, along with the images, came understanding. Her name meant star-touched in her language. She was the daughter of the Stellar Council, heir to an empire that spanned 17 star systems. But there had been a coup, a betrayal. She'd been fleeing with evidence of the conspiracy when her ship was sabotaged. When the connection ended, they were both breathing hard. Kai found himself still holding her hand, her skin warm against his. The setting sun caught her hair, making it seem molten gold against the silver purple of her skin. You're beautiful, he said softly, then flushed at his own boldness. She tilted her head, recognizing the tone if not the words. Then she did something that took his breath away. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his. In her culture, he somehow knew this was the equivalent of a kiss. The touch sent sparks through both of them, literally. Her bioluminescent markings flared bright blue-white, and Kai felt electricity dance across his skin. Not painful, but exhilarating, like every nerve ending was coming alive. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing each other's air, sharing space. Then Vera pulled back, her eyes bright with something that needed no translation. Kai, she whispered, and the way she said his name felt like poetry. Vera, he replied, reaching up to touch her cheek. Her skin was impossibly soft, warm, with that slight electric tingle. This time she initiated the kiss, a real kiss despite the differences in their physiology. Her lips were softer than expected, and the gentle current that passed between them made everything else fade away. The broken greenhouse, the weight of secrets, the impossible nature of their situation, none of it mattered. When they finally parted, Vera's markings were pulsing in a rhythm Kai somehow recognized as contentment. Earth, she said, one of the first words she'd learned from him, then she touched his heart. Home. That night, as Kai walked back to the house under a star-filled sky, he realized he was in love. Not with the idea of the exotic or the thrill of the impossible, but with Vera herself. The way she hummed while examining plants, how she'd spent an entire afternoon trying to communicate the concept of gratitude, the fierce intelligence behind those violet gold eyes. His phone had been buzzing with texts from Jake all week about increased military presence in the area. Helicopters had been flying overhead daily. Time was running out. As he reached the back door, Kai made a decision. Tomorrow, he'd tell Vera everything he'd learned about the outside world's reaction to her presence. Tonight, he'd allow himself to fall asleep thinking about the electric feeling of her kiss, the way her markings had glowed just for him. In the distance, thunder rumbled. Another storm was coming. The morning started with the sound of helicopters, not the distant drone Kai had grown used to, but the heavy thrum of multiple aircraft directly overhead. He grabbed his phone and saw 17 missed calls from his mother, who was supposed to be at work by now. Military lockdown, her text read. Roads blocked, stay inside. Kai's blood ran cold. The greenhouse was only a 5-minute walk from the house, but those 5 minutes might as well have been miles. He threw on clothes and was halfway to the back door when his mother intercepted him. Kai, you're not going anywhere. Her voice was steel. Something crashed in our woods 3 weeks ago, and now they're saying it could be some kind of biological hazard. Mom, I need to. You need to stay put. I already lost your father. I'm not losing you to some government experiment gone wrong. 2 hours of packing later, Kai couldn't stand it anymore. He created a diversion by claiming stomach issues and locked himself in the bathroom. From there, he could climb out the small window and make it to the woods. He found Vera in panic mode, her markings flickering between colors he'd never seen, deep red, then yellow, then a pulsing white. The device in her hand was actually working now, projecting what looked like a holographic map. Kai, relief flooded her face. Danger, they come. Her English had improved dramatically over the weeks, but stress made her revert to simpler phrases. She showed him the map, multiple red indicators converging on their location. We need to leave, now, he said. Where? Kai thought frantically, then remembered the Whisper Caves. He and Jake had discovered them as kids, a network of limestone caves that honeycombed through the hills. The entrance was hidden by brush, and they extended for miles underground. Trust me, he asked, taking her hand. Her answer was the forehead touch that always made his heart race. Always. They ran, through the woods, past the old quarry, down slopes slippery with morning dew. Behind them, the helicopter sounds intensified, joined by the baying of search dogs. Vera moved with inhuman grace, barely touching the ground as she leaped fallen logs and ducked branches. They reached the cave entrance as the first search team broke through the tree line behind them. Kai yanked aside the brush covering and gestured for Vera to enter first. She hesitated, touching the cave mouth with wonder. Stone like home, she murmured. We can't stop, Kai urged, glancing back. He could see flashlight beams cutting through the forest. They plunged into darkness. Kai had a small flashlight, but Vera surprised him by pressing her palm against the cave wall. Her markings brightened, casting a soft blue glow that illuminated their path better than any flashlight. How? Itheran gift, she explained, leading the way now. Energy from stars lives in rock too. They went deeper than Kai had ever explored as a child. The caves opened into vast chambers filled with impossible formations, crystal growths, underground streams, caverns that seemed to stretch into infinity. Vera moved with increasing confidence, occasionally pressing her palm to the rock and causing entire sections to light up. Hours later, they reached a chamber unlike anything Kai had seen. The ceiling was covered in crystals that caught and reflected Vera's light, creating a natural planetarium. She sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Like home, she whispered, like the crystal gardens of Ithara. Kai knelt beside her, putting his arm around her shoulders. Tell me about home. And she did. Not through their touch communication, but with words and gestures, her English flowing more freely in this place that reminded her of where she came from. She spoke of cities that floated between stars, of people who drew energy directly from suns, of a government that had become corrupt, sacrificing entire worlds for power. My father discovered proof, she said. Council members were selling weapons to hostile races, destroying peaceful colonies to cover tracks. He sent me away with the evidence, but they found my ship. The device contains enough proof to end the war, bring peace, but without the connecting crystal. She touched the broken device sadly. Just data now, no way to broadcast to Itheran network. They had been talking for hours when Vera suddenly froze. Someone comes, she whispered. The light from her markings dimmed to nothing. In the darkness, Kai heard what she must have sensed, footsteps echoing through the caverns. But these weren't heavy military boots. These were soft, careful steps. A figure emerged from the shadows, female, slim, wearing clothing that seemed to shift like liquid mercury. Her skin was the same silver-purple as Vera's, but her hair was pure white. Sister, the figure said in the musical language Vera had been teaching him, you are harder to find than expected. Vera's response was not relief but a defensive crouch. Kirana, how? The council believes you dead, but I never believed they could catch the Star Daughter so easily. Kirana's eyes fell on Kai. And you found more than shelter, I see. The tension in the air was palpable. Kai stood, placing himself partially between the two aliens. Friend or enemy? Kirana smiled, a gesture that lit up her pale markings. That remains to be seen, Sky Eyes. As if on cue, the device in Vera's hand began to pulse. The underground crystal formations responded, creating a natural amplification system that filled the chamber with harmonic frequencies. The connecting crystal, Vera breathed. These caves, they're not just like Ithara, they're made of the same crystal matrix. Understanding dawned on all three faces simultaneously. They weren't just hiding in random caves. They'd found a piece of Ithara itself, a colony site abandoned eons ago, its crystal technology still active. The broken device could be fixed. The evidence could be broadcast. But first, they had to survive what was coming, because if Kirana had found them, others wouldn't be far behind. As if summoned by the thought, explosions rocked the cave system above. The hunt had found them. The explosions sent tremors through the cavern, dislodging ancient stalactites. Kirana moved with liquid grace, her hand blazing with energy as she caught falling rocks before they could strike anyone. Both sides found you at once, she said grimly. Itheran loyalists and hunters plus your human military, this cave system will be a battleground within the hour. Vera clutched the now glowing device. The crystal matrix here, can it broadcast our evidence? The matrix is old but functional. However, Kirana's eyes fell on Kai. The broadcast requires a living conduit, someone to channel and amplify the signal. I'll do it, Vera said immediately. No, Kirana shook her head. You're too important. If the broadcast fails, someone needs to survive to carry the evidence manually to the outer rim. She turned to Kai. But a hybrid could work, someone who shares both Earth and Itheran energy signatures. I'm not Itheran, Kai said, confused. Vera took his hands, her touch sending the familiar electric sensation through his skin. But you could be, temporarily. The cave lit up with energy as Vera explained. Biointegration, a process where two beings could share consciousness, energy, even genetic material for a limited time. It was how Itheran bonded mates, shared memories, created the deepest form of connection possible. It's dangerous, Kirana warned. Especially for a human, the energy levels could burn out your nervous system. More explosions, closer now. Kai could hear gunfire echoing through the passages, different weapons mixing together. Human projectiles, Itheran energy weapons, something else that sounded like liquid fire. How long, he asked. Long enough to broadcast, Vera said. But Kai, if something goes wrong. We don't have time, he cut her off. Show me. Vera led him to the center of the chamber, where the largest crystal formation rose from the ground like a throne. She placed the device at its base, where it immediately fused with the crystal, sending waves of energy racing through the underground network. Sit, she directed, guiding him to kneel facing her. Look in my eyes, don't look away no matter what happens. Kirana took a defensive position at the chamber entrance, energy crackling around her hands. Begin, I'll hold them off. Vera placed her palms against Kai's chest over his heart. Immediately, he felt her energy flowing into him, warm at first, then burning, then beyond heat into something indescribable. Their eyes locked, and suddenly they weren't two beings anymore. The merge was unlike anything he'd experienced through their touches. This was complete. Her memories became his, her knowledge, her very essence. He saw the beauty of Ithara, felt the weight of crown and responsibility, experienced the betrayal that had sent her fleeing. But more than that, he felt her love for him, pure and overwhelming, a nova in his chest. At the same time, she was experiencing Earth through his senses. Small town life, family dinners, the way sunlight filtered through leaves, simple human joys she'd never imagined. And his love for her, equally overwhelming in its simplicity and depth. Now her voice echoed in his mind, "Together." They reached for the device simultaneously. The crystal throne blazed with light, and Kai understood he was no longer purely human. His skin had taken on a faint silver sheen, subtle markings appeared along his arms, pulsing in time with Vera's. He could feel the cave system like a living thing, every crystal connected, every passage mapped in his mind. The broadcast began. Data flowed through them like a river, evidence of corruption, proof of genocide, communications between council members planning further atrocities. It blazed out through the crystal network, beyond the caves, into space itself. "It's working," Kirana shouted from the entrance where she was battling multiple attackers. "But hurry." The energy levels were becoming impossible. Kai felt like his skin was fire, his bones electricity. But he held on, Vera's strength supporting him, her presence keeping him anchored. "Almost there," she whispered in his mind. That's when the chamber doors blew open. Armed figures poured in, human soldiers, Itharan warriors in ceremonial armor, and others Kai didn't recognize. Kirana fought brilliantly but was overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "Cease the broadcast," a voice boomed. A tall Itharan in ornate armor stepped forward, his skin bearing markings that shifted like living tattoos. "Crown Princess, your evidence changes nothing. Surrender the device." "General Thrix," Vera's merged consciousness recognized him. "You would destroy everything our people stand for." "I would save them from weakness. Humans are beneath us. This fusion is an abomination." Kai felt Vera's rage spike, and with it his own power surged. The transformation deepened. His eyes now held flecks of gold and violet, his height increased, and energy crackled visibly around his hands. "You're wrong," Kai heard himself say, his voice carrying harmonics he'd never possessed. "Integration is evolution, not degradation." The room fell silent as they broadcast the final piece of evidence. A recording of the council ordering the destruction of a peaceful human colony ship that had stumbled upon their operations. Then the crystal throne shattered. The explosion of energy sent everyone flying. When the light faded, Kai and Vera were separated, collapsed on opposite sides of the chamber. But the damage to their enemies was greater. Most had been rendered unconscious or fled. Only Kirana and a few loyalists remained standing. General Thrix struggled to his feet, weapon raised. But before he could fire, a new voice echoed through the chamber. "General, stand down." A figure materialized from swirling energy, older, bearing markings of ultimate authority. Vera's eyes widened. "Father." The late Kai's transformation began to fade, leaving him dizzy but alive. Vera crawled to his side, checking for injuries. "The broadcast reached the outer systems," her father said. "The evidence was received. Council members are being arrested as we speak. The revolution is over, daughter. You've saved us all." As human and Itharan forces began to lower their weapons, Kai looked at Vera. Her skin was returning to its normal silver purple, but he could still feel the echo of their connection, fainter now but still there. "Did we just start something bigger?" he whispered. She kissed him, human and alien no longer feeling like different categories. "We started everything." 1 year later, the small town of Millbrook was unrecognizable. What had been a quiet rural community was now the site of the first interstellar cultural exchange center. The old field where Kai used to play soccer hosted shuttlecraft from 17 different star systems. The local diner served cuisine from across the galaxy, though they still made the best apple pie, according to Itharan visitors. Kai stood at the observation deck of the new facility, watching the sunset paint the sky in familiar Earth colors. His appearance had permanently changed. skin bearing faint silver undertones, eyes now carrying spots of violet and gold. He was the first human-Itheran hybrid, living proof that integration was possible. Tired already, Ambassador? He turned to find Vera approaching, resplendent in formal Itheran robes that somehow looked perfectly at home against the Earth backdrop. As the crown princess and architect of the integration protocols, she split her time between worlds now. Just thinking, he replied, taking her hand. Their connection had never faded completely. They could still sense each other's emotions, share thoughts with a touch. About a stormy night a year ago when I made the dumbest decision of my life, going out to investigate a crash instead of staying safely inside. She laughed, the sound carrying those musical harmonics that had charmed him from the beginning. And look how it turned out. First contact, unprecedented interstellar cooperation, the end of the Council's warmongering. You forget the most important part. What's that? I got the girl. Her bioluminescent markings flared with amusement. The girl got stranded, and a very helpful boy took pity on her. They stood together, watching the first evening transport arrive from Ithara. The ship landed with minimal fanfare now. Such sights had become routine. A group of human teenagers waited to greet the Itheran students who'd be spending a semester at the local high school. Your mother's adjusting well, Vera observed. Kai's mother had become the director of domestic integration, helping families navigate the reality of interstellar neighbors. She says you remind her of Dad sometimes. Stubborn, idealistic, convinced you can save everyone. Can't I? Vera challenged with a grin. Maybe we can, he corrected, together. The integration program had exceeded everyone's expectations. 12 intermarriages had resulted in hybrid children already. Trade agreements flourished. Joint technologies were revolutionizing both societies, and the bond between Earth and Ithara had inspired other races to seek similar partnerships. Kirana sent word, Vera mentioned, tracing patterns on his arm that made his hybrid senses sing. 3 more systems want to join the alliance. The more the merrier, though I still say we need a bigger conference center. Or we could hold the next summit in the caves. They'd never told anyone that the limestone caves of Millbrook held naturally occurring Itheran crystal technology. It remained their secret, a place they could escape to when the weight of being bridges between worlds became too much. Dance with me? Vera asked suddenly. Here, now. Always now, never enough time to waste. Kai took her in his arms as she summoned a soft melody, a blend of earth music and Itheran harmonics. They swayed together as the stars emerged, one by one in the gathering darkness. Any regrets? She whispered against his ear. Just one. She pulled back, surprised. What? That it took me 17 years to meet you. Her marking blazed brilliant gold, pure happiness in her visual language. She kissed him under the emerging stars, human and Itheran, and something entirely new. Below them, the lights of 2 civilizations intertwined, creating constellations on Earth to match those in the sky. Ships moved between worlds as easily as cars between towns. Children played games that blended human and alien traditions. Lovers from different stars shared ice cream and bioluminescent flowers. When they finally parted, Vera rested her forehead against his, their first gesture of connection, now a greeting between their species. Ready for the next crisis? She asked, because there was always a next crisis when you were building bridges between worlds. As long as you're with me. Always, she promised, across all stars through all storms. Later, as they walked hand in hand toward the greenhouse, now a preserved monument to first contact, Kai reflected on the strange twists of fate. A crashed ship, a choice to help instead of hide, a love that transcended species. He'd set out to save one alien girl and ended up helping unite 2 worlds. But the real revolution, he knew, had been quieter, the moment 2 beings from different stars looked at each other and saw not alien but potential, not difference but connection. Above them, the stars shone brighter as if celebrating, and maybe in their own ancient way they were. After all, stars had always believed in impossible things, in fusion, in transformation, in the power of connection across vast distances. As they reached the greenhouse, Vera paused. Want to know a secret? Always. That night you found me, my ship's navigation system wasn't randomly hit. I programmed it to find someone who would help, someone with the right energy signature. She touched his cheek. It was searching for you specifically. What? The device found readings of compassion, curiosity, love, all the frequencies we lost on Ethera. My ship didn't crash randomly, Kai. It found exactly who it was supposed to find. Kai stared at her, then started laughing. So you're saying fate had a navigation system? Call it quantum destiny, she grinned, or just really good programming. Either way, he said, pulling her close. Best crash I ever investigated. Best landing I ever made. And under the light of two worlds' moons, surrounded by the gentle glow of alien flowers now growing alongside earthly ones, they wrote the next chapter of a story that had begun with a storm and a choice, and would ripple across the stars for generations to come. The end.